Yes, guys, welcome back to MCFC Connect. Today, we're talking about specifically Livramento alternatives, but not just Livramento alternatives to other targets that we would ideally want us as fans to be fans of, but we just don't seem to be in for. So, for example, Livramento obviously not going to feature in this video. We'll probably touch up on him because, in my opinion, anyway, he is the perfect candidate for the right back role. Homegrown, good age, good experience. He's got it all really that you would want. And there's other roles that are a bit more out there that could be filled too. Denzel Dumfries is a player that's been looked at quite cheap, pretty well experienced, obviously, and had pretty good seasons as of late. And of course, Hakimi at PSG, who is one of the most on form right backs in the world right now, and other right backs as well, that we would probably all like at City, but are very unlikely to happen. And so today's video is all about alternative right backs to those targets that we unfortunately do look like we might be missing out on. But alternatives that could be good, that both have their pros and their cons in terms of the deal, but also in terms of the players. So let's start off with our first being, pardon my speaking of his name, but Giviro Reed of Feyenoord. Now, and he's 19 years old, so he's on the younger side. He turned 19 in June, so he's really not long been on the scene for in terms of professional football outside the academy, but has had a pretty good time with Feyenoord nonetheless. Now then, there's a lot of orange in this defensive area, but we'll start with his passing, which does seem to be pretty good. 6 assists, which isn't bad for a right back, I would like to say. That's pretty solid. 6 assists. He also got 2 goals, so that's an overall 8 goal contributions, only counting his Eredivisie stats. I believe Feyenoord won the league as well, so it's a pretty good... it would have been a pretty good season for him. Played a lot of the games as well, to my knowledge. Played a 9.5 game here, but didn't get man of the match, which is just kind of crazy. 3 assists in that game. But look, 2 goals, very good. Shots, not really worried about the goals, but passing is an area that we as City fans like to look at. Now then, what I will say is, passing here, when you join City, it will go up. Okay, definitely in certain areas of passing, just because we pass the ball a ton. You don't need me to tell you that passing stats will go up when you join City because that's just how we play. So 86%, which isn't even that bad, that will probably be more like 90 to 92 if he was to join City. So, don't worry if you think his accuracy is a bit below the bars, basically what I'm trying to say. Long balls, he doesn't seem to be too bad on. His accuracy could be better, but I suspect Feyenoord probably... actually, maybe they don't. One of the better teams in the league. They probably play with possession, so maybe long balls aren't what they're all about, to be fair. Created 24 chances, though, which is pretty good. 8 successful crosses, but a pretty low accuracy. But I'm not really looking for it too much. I obviously want a competent player going forward. Kyle Walker, his crosses were never superb, especially in the back end of his time at City. Now, in terms of dribbling, not too bad either. 50% success rate. Hopefully that would go up in time, because remember, he's young. He'd be developed a lot. He's got such a long way ahead of him at just 19 years old. But overall, not an awful ratio. Could be better, though. Now then, defending. Bit of a hit and miss here. 37 tackles won, so not bad. But then his accuracy in terms of winning tackles could be better. Only 57% in red here. I think 57... I don't know how they determine their reds, to be fair. It might adjust depending on... the rest of the league and their averages, maybe. But 57% is not awful, but it definitely could be better. It implies that he does get beaten a fair amount, to be fair, and that he does do some tackles. 113 duels won though, which is pretty good, and 64% in terms of duels won is very good as well. Aerial duels 12. Again, right, I don't really expect him to win a ton of aerial duels, but again, key thing to note is with Gavira Reed at the very least is that he's going to be developed. He's got a long way ahead of him. He's a bit of a gamble, if you will. He's not going to be super duper expensive, I wouldn't have thought. He's going to cost under 50 million. Which is a lot cheaper than Livramento, that is for sure, and targets like Hakimi. But 12 aerial duels, it's not awful. And again, all this can be increased. It's a gamble signing. He's not super experienced, but the potential is there after a pretty good season with Feyenoord. But again, he's very young. He's one of those signings that could go either way. Market value of about 20 million. I believe he's got a contract till 2029, but don't quote me on that. But I do think his contract is relatively lengthy, so it's probably going to cost you 30 to 40 million, I would have thought, dependent on Feyenoord's stance on the player. But just to finish up on him and his strengths now, then we saw that crossing wasn't great for him. Discipline as well, but again, discipline's going to be trained. I say that all the time. Discipline will be trained into a player. He's young. He's going to lack a bit of discipline. But a strength is holding onto the ball, passing key passes, and according to this, tackling, which was, I think, in the red zone, to be fair. So again, not too bad, if you ask me at least. He's got 3 goals, 6 assists according to this, so not too bad at all. But now then, let's hop on to our next target in a different league, who, again, just had a pretty good season for his club, being Vanderson from Monaco. A bit older by a fair amount than Gavira Reed, at 24 years old, whole 5 years older. He's worth about 25 million, so again, he's probably going to cost you a fair amount, about 30 to 40 million, probably, dependent on the stats from Monaco. But let's scroll down to here. So, 3 assists, again, not bad. Expected assists as well, so about where he's at. Successful passes of 913. Now then, a passing accuracy of just shy of 80%, which again, it's not as bad as it looks, because again, it's going to go up when he joins City. That will go up, and he'll probably be developed as well. 24 is still young for a player. Don't forget. 79 accurate long balls though, which seems to be one of the highest percents in the league. I'm gonna guess. I believe is what these percentages below the green bars are meant to indicate, and a very good success rate as well, according to this, compared to the rest of the league, with 53%. 23 chances created, 15 successful crosses, but his cross accuracy is a bit dodgy. But again, I don't really expect that of my right back. Dribbling, pretty good as well, with just over 50%. Tackles won, pretty good. Percentage could be better, but again, 63% is not awful. And again, he'll be trained, he's going to get better. He's only 24, he's not in his prime yet. 145 duels won, 58% of the duels won, that's pretty solid. Aerial duels could be better, but all this, though, being green is a very good sign. Interceptions, blocked shots, fouls committed 28, which is pretty good, it seems. Implies that he wins more tackles than he does commit fouls. 153 recoveries, which is very good. And possession won in the final third. That's kind of big because, again, City, we obviously like to press, and we like to keep the ball as high as we can. We have a very high line, and so winning possession in the final third is big. Now it's not all perfect. He got dribbled past 19 times, which is pretty bad according to FootMob. So again, it is something to watch out for. Every signing here does have its cons. Now then, he's probably going to cost you about 30 to 50 million, really. But again, it's a lot cheaper than our other target, Livramento, of course. And we'll hop on over to his who scored sheet now. Here you go. Again, very strong tackling, key passes, dribbling, and interceptions and concentration. He's all strong and disciplined as well. Again, though, when he joins City, he's going to get trained. That's going to get trained out of him. He is 24, but still, that is going to get trained out of him big time, if you ask me. And again, this guy's a player that a lot of fans have kept an eye on and have really liked. I know This is City is a big fan of this guy, so he does seem to be a very solid player. Again, it's a bit of a gamble. Okay, he plays in League One. It's not the Premier League, but it's certainly not bad, and his age is solid too. He's got experience. Now then, bouncing into the Premier League. Now then, don't scratch your eyes when I show this one. It is a bit of an out there one, but Alf mentioned this one, so big ups to Alf for this one. And I think it's definitely worth mentioning, just to some level. I know he's ex-United, and I know it's Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but I just think, in terms of a shortish term right back until maybe a better option comes up, someone that can help keep solid, someone that can rotate Nunes a bit. Now, and again, I think this is a bit of a gamble. There is the debate whether Aaron Wan-Bissaka is good enough for the top level. Okay, but he is the kind of player that can maybe become a bit of a squad player potentially when we do sign a better right back. Now, and this guy's very different from previous ones, because the previous ones were right backs that I want to be our first choice for the future. Wan-Bissaka, he isn't that. Okay, he's obviously not quite that. He's a solid defender. He's nothing special, but he's someone that can just help keep it tight a bit. And it hasn't been too bad at West Ham, to my knowledge. And we'll scroll down to his actual stats now. Passing accuracy, not bad. Again, at City, that's only going to go up, so I don't really worry about it much. Crossing, again, doesn't really seem to be a strength of any of our guys so far. Possession, he doesn't seem to be too bad. A lot of green, so we do like that. Defensively, mostly good. Bit of a couple of worries. Aerial duels, I don't think he's ever been good on aerial duels, to my knowledge. Dribbled past 9 times. Again, he's not like the best right back in the world, so we're not expecting that. But he's won a lot of tackles. He's kind of like a defensively solid, decent in duels, which is shown here. Almost 200 duels won, with over 50% of them won. 70% of his tackles won. Almost 50 tackles won as well. So, again, it's very solid stuff. 25 fouls committed, which isn't bad, to be fair. 174 recoveries, one of the highest in the league. 15 times he won the possession in the final third, again, something good, and we do like. No red cards and only 1 yellow in his time in the Premier League. Played a lot of minutes as well. So, again, something that can only be credited, in my opinion. Again, he's not like a guy for the future. I know there's a bit of a stench considering he was ex-United, but he's a player to consider. If we can look past that to some level, he's a player to consider, and he'd be relatively cheap. West Ham, I don't imagine want to lose him, but again, he definitely won't cost you 50 million. And just to wrap up on his stats here, again, some of his strengths. Defending is very much a strength of his, but aerial duels has always been a weaker area. Very good in terms of the right-hand side, but does feature off the left when it does seem when needed, and even dips into midfield a bit, which is good. Pep does like right-backs and, full-backs on a whole, going into that midfield, pushing up a bit, which is good. But again, all of these defensive stats all green and very strong in some respects as well. Now I'm going back onto the younger, higher potential signings now. Same age as Gavira Reed at just 19 years old. You may have seen him, you may have heard of him, Martin Fernandez. He's 19 years old, turned in January. 6 assists last season in the Portuguese league. No goals, but he's a right back. Again, passing, very solid. 81% passing accuracy, it will go up. And again, this guy's very young. Okay, it's the same thing with Gavira Reed. It's that gamble of, will this guy join the club and be able to hit the ground running? Is he going to need a couple years? That is like the kind of question that you have to ask yourself. I personally think, due to his defensive stats, he's the kind of signing that's going to take a couple years unless he just has a complete turnaround. Defensively, he's a bit of a worry, but offensively, he does seem very good, and on the ball, not too bad at all. But defending does obviously need working on, which would obviously put a lot of people off. Okay, not my first choice. Cheapest one yet in terms of market value. He's probably going to cost you about 30 million, really, and depending on Porto's stats and depending on how high they rate him for his future. He's a very developmental player. For me, he's the biggest gamble, personally. But he's probably got Champions League football under his belt, which is something to note. So it's not the worst choice ever, is what I'm going to say, but I think he's the biggest roll of the dice. For me, he's probably a player that could either be solid from the get-go or could just kind of stink up the park and need a couple of seasons. I don't think he's going to be a player that hits the ground running and just slips into the team instantly. He's my biggest gamble on this list. Now we'll go into this now then. Again, crossing, passing, and on the ball kind of stuff, he seems to be very good at. He can even slip in at centre-back if you need him to. But yeah, on the ball kind of stuff, he seems to be very good at. Can't really discredit him. But defensively, he does need work. So again, it's that double-edged sword. All these signings have got some sort of con to them. Okay, that's the whole point. Now then, going back to the Premier League, we have got a signing from a club that we have signed from before, Pedro Porro. This would be another weird one because it would be a return of another player that we signed years ago, sold on to Sporting. The most expensive one here, definitely, and probably the hardest one to get. Okay, this one is probably a bit more of a stretch, to be fair. Tottenham last season, we all know, weren't great, but to my knowledge, Pedro Porro was probably one of the brighter lights for his team. By no means was he brilliant, even scored a goal against us, but he's shown a lot of good signs at Tottenham, and I know a lot of Tottenham fans are a big fan of him. He's 25 years old, so he's going into big years of his life now, and I don't think he'd say no to a move to City. I don't think he would. I don't really know what his stance is on Tottenham, okay, but you might think, it's a big six club, we won't get their signing. We signed Kyle Walker all those years ago. I think we can get Pedro Porro. He's going to cost you more than 50 million, okay? Big shock there. He's probably going to cost you 50 to 70. Now, you might just say, I'd rather use that money on Livramento. Newcastle are firm on Livramento. It's going to take ridiculous fees, and in a season that they are already losing out on, they're already losing Isaac, they're not going to want to lose another part of their long-term future. Okay, especially at the right back role. They know the right back market is tight right now. Newcastle, okay, they would have already been looking at potential replacements for Livramento just for the potential that he were to leave. And they know it's tough right now. And they know Kieran Trippier getting older and only getting slower. Livramento, a player who's also only getting older, but is like 22 and going into big years. He's Premier League proven. He's going to be a top right back, and they know that. So, but with Pedro Porro, I think we can do it. We've done it. We did it with Kyle Walker, who was by no means a bad right back then either. And he does have a lot of good stats, Last season, shooting all green, got 2 goals, believe one of them against us, believe it or not. 6 assists, again, not bad. Passing accuracy, again, it will go up. It will go up with us. So give it time. One of the highest amount of accurate long balls, though, in the top 97% in the league. Long ball accuracy could be better, but again, probably going to improve when he's at City. And in a system that he'll know to some extent as well. Okay, he would have been trained in the Pep way from his time at City. I know him and Pep didn't get many interactions, if any, when they were at the club, but he would have been trained in the way of City to some level, and City wouldn't have signed him if he didn't have the potential to play in their squad anyway. Successful dribbles 14. Dribble success rate not great. Touches a lot. Dispossessed 18 times. Fouls 1 though 33. Not bad for a right back. Now on defending, bit hit and miss. Tackling, he seems very solid at. It's all green. It's very good. And duels 1, very high as well. But his percentage, not superb, with 50%, and seems to be in the red compared to the rest of the Premier League. Aerial duels seems to be an area that we are struggling with a little bit in this video, as that is orange and red. But in terms of these stats, very, very good. All green, all very high. 86% there. 36 interceptions, 12 blocked shots, 25 fouls committed, 152 recoveries, 13 times he won the ball in the final third, 5 yellow cards, which the Premier's rate labelled as pretty bad here, but I think that could be worse. Now, he did only complete 2,600 minutes, which was about 500 less than Wan-Bissaka, so he did obviously miss some games here. But good thing is with Porro, he's going to get rotated with Núñez. Okay, we're not going to overplay him in any way, so we would take good care of him. Now then, who would I want here? Probably either Porro or Anderson, I think, are the best options. They're the most experienced. We'll quickly finish up on Porro here. Again, all like the on the ball stuff and even defensively pretty solid. But yeah, for me it's either Anderson or Vanderson or Porro. Okay, they're both of decent age. They've both got good stats in their respective areas. You could argue Porro is the safer pick, but he's the more expensive pick. But Vanderson could very well be just as good as a player for cheaper and for even a little bit younger to add to your squad. So I probably edge it to Vanderson, but Porro's not a bad pick. And the rest of them aren't too bad in terms of Wan-Bissaka being a good potential right back to help steady the ship now, but also be rotation for the future. And then the younger guys to be long-term, bit of a gamble, signings. I'd say my least favourite candidate is Martin Fernandez, then Gavira Reed. No, then Wan-Bissaka, then Gavira Reed, then Porro, and then Vanderson. But let me know what you think. Is there a candidate I missed completely? Is there someone that would be better than all these guys? Obviously, excluding some of the big names like Koundé, Hakimi, Livramento, and so on. Realistic targets that City can go in for. Let me know what you're thinking down below. Really do appreciate the support, Blues. Hoping to get some daily content coming in, starting with yesterday's stream and this video. Big ups to you all, Blues, and I'll see you all tomorrow.